Hello, apostate congregation, and welcome to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. Today, apostates, um, what is today? Today is November 2nd, 2025. Um, I think it's either the 2nd or the 1st. I don't remember. Either way, today we are going to talk about Joseph's destroying angel. Okay, so my last video is Brigham's destroying angel. So upon researching Brigham's destroying angel, um, a long time ago, I came across a book by John Corrill, Corrill, John Corrill. Okay, and the name of his book is A Brief History of the Church of Christ, the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly called the Mormons, including an account of their doctrine and discipline, with the reasons the author for leaving the church. This was published in 1839, apostates. It's 50 pages long, and it's 27 chapters, and it's only 50 pages long. So some of these chapters are literally like 5 sentences. Okay. Um, it's an easy read, but it's very, very insightful. Okay, like when it comes to Mormon history, um, this book is great. Okay, so what is the significance of this book? This is the earliest print in print, okay, of the Danites and the destroying angel. Okay, 1839. He's talking about the destroying angel. Okay, well, John Beadle's book, right? Wild Bill is all about Wild Bill Hickman. He is the destroying angel, right? His book comes out in 1872. Okay, so this is the first print in 1839 of the destroying angel, apostate congregation. That's huge. That's massive. Okay, it's in chapter 22. Okay, is where he talks about it. He's talking about a specific individual. Okay, but he never says his name. He never gives who is the destroying angel, right? Now you have to understand this is the context of the Mormon War, right? So we're in 1839, this book is published. The Mormon War is in 1838, right? Okay, so you got to keep the context, right, in place. So as our last video, we talked about Bill Hickman. That whole video is about Wild Bill Hickman, right? So this video is a follow-up on that, apostate congregation. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your day to uh, watch the Mormon Atheist, and you know, uh, you know, on this channel we're history nerds, so we're looking into all of this stuff, and we're going in and we're comparing Mormon history, right, as far as the cult history is concerned, and what is outside legitimate history saying, right? So this channel compares. We take the two different factions and we compare notes, right? So thank you for tuning into the Mormon Atheist. Okay. Um, let's turn on to some John Corrill, right? And let's take a walk through time and go back in history and drop out of society for a while, apostates. And look into this stuff. It's a great window in time. It's a glimpse in time that was captured and preserved by these authors that I talk about on my channel. So like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of you newcomers to the channel, welcome to the congregation. There's been a few of you in the last recent a couple of days, a few weeks, that are really showing a lot of interest, and it's great. I really appreciate your time and your effort, and your choice, right? Because tuning into the Mormon Atheist is a choice. So thank you. We will never be monetized, so your appreciation is greatly um, or your appreciation is greatly appreciated. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's talk about the destroying angel, and let's go. Let's get into it. So Bill Hickman, who is Bill Hickman? He was born in 1815. He is the destroying angel that is talked about in Brigham's Destroying Angel, the name of that book, right, by John Beadle. Okay. By 1838, okay, this is important because in Mormon history, this is denied, okay? But we're talking about Hickman's own words. We're using Hickman's own words in Beadle's book, okay? By 1838, Hickman was living in Missouri per his own account in Beadle's work, right, in 1872. Hickman converted in 1838, right, the Mormon War. Hickman died in 1883 at the age of 68. Okay, there's a reason I'm going into this, so stay with me, apostates. Okay, Hickman himself identifies as the chief of the destroying angels, right? Head Danite of Utah. Hickman's own words, his own confessions, apostate congregation. Hickman's age, location, membership all fit the timeline, right? In both works, right? In Corrill's work, and obviously we know in Beadle's work, right? So we're talking about a specific timeline. So how old would Hickman be? Okay, he would be 24 years old, right? And this all goes into the Mormon narrative. This is Mormon history, it says all this stuff, right? So Hickman was 24 years old, right? So he is of age, let's say, okay? And he is, this is the Mormon War, right? The beginnings of the Mormon War, and John Corrill is writing about this. He's telling you his personal accounts of what's happening during the time of the Mormon War, right? And so it's crazy because you get a lot of firsts. There's a lot of firsts with this book, right? So John Corrill, it's the first mention of the Danites. It's the first mention of the destroying angels. It's the first mention of the Mormon War. Um, there's a caveat to that, though. But as far as, okay, so the caveat to the Mormon War, okay, it's a clarification of sources. Okay, when you're talking about the Mormon War and you're researching it, John Carroll's book is the first book length mention of the Mormon War. Okay. There's no other mention previous to that whatsoever. The caveat is later scholarship, later Mormon historians, later times say that there's newspaper articles, there's pamphlets, there's booklets of this stuff, of mentioning the Mormon War, talking about the Mormon War. So that's the caveat. Later sources versus later Mormon sources versus John Corrill, because John Corrill is a dissenter, and he tells you, he gives you his reasons why he left the church. They didn't sign up for this. This isn't what they signed up for, right? What's taking place that leads to the Mormon War. right? And these people are fighting for the church. They're going along with it. You know, they're, they're proud members. They drank the Kool-Aid. They're believing faithful members. They're TBMs of the day, right? And just eventually there becomes a point where everybody is like, hey, and this is what's called the Great Dissension, right? We all know this, right? The Great Apostasy, whatever language you want to use for it, right? But this is a legit Mormon historical thing, right? And this takes place during this time. This is why, well, I don't want to say this is why, but this is one of the reasons why the Danites are even created in the first place, right? Was to maintain order amongst the members, right? They started implementing the law, right? If this is the cult. Think Jim Jones, right? If you leave the cult, you're going to die. We're going to kill you. So you're better off just staying, right? Which creates further dissent. So they can't win, right? And so this whole thing is taking place all at the same time, right? And John Corrill is like, I've had enough. I'm done with this. This isn't what I signed up for. I love you guys. And this, he writes this. This is, I'm extremely paraphrasing with the "I love you guys," but he says, hey, I left the church and I was a complete faithful following member, and I abided by every rule and did everything that I was asked. But this isn't what I signed up for. And you guys are now killing people. You're murdering, you're robbing, you're putting hits on the governor. Like this is not the religious organization that I signed up for, right? And this is in his own words, Corrill, right? So it's really interesting to see his perspective as a TBM. He was a TBM, right? And and he gives these accounts. He talks about, the Salt Sermon, right? It's his book is the first account, the first in print written account of the Salt Sermon, Sidney Rigdon's Salt Sermon, right? So there's a lot of firsts in his book, okay? And that's what's cool about reading these old books in the time frame, right? Because when you stay in contemporary sources, outside church sources, you're getting the raw story. You're getting the unfiltered story, right? So this book, Corrill's book, has later been rewritten as Corrill's work by the church, okay? And a lot of this stuff has been taken out. Like 98% of the books that I talk about on this channel have been altered in some form or fashion by the church. That's why, that is directly why we go to the original, the earliest print copies that we can find of these books, and that's what we read, because these books are strikingly different. They're strikingly different. When you read the original version versus the newest publication by the church, right? And then LDS history, Mormon history, is created off of those books, not the original source material. Because the original source material is incredibly damning. That's why it's called anti-Mormon material. There's nothing anti-Mormon about this stuff. They're just telling you the legit, like, this was my experience. Hey, this is what happened. Hey, I was there. This is John Corrill's book is literally a first-hand account. It's a first-hand account, right? In 1839. So, you can't argue, right? You can't argue. I mean, I guess you could, but what good is it really going to do you, right? So let's keep going. Let's keep going, right? John Corrill does not name the destroying angel in 1839. Okay. Later, in Hickman's own words in Beadle's book, Hickman is confirming Corrill, right? It's a fascinating thing, apostates. When you start reading these books and you start, I emphasize all the time, follow the names. Follow the names and the dates. The names and the dates that are in these books will take you places. They'll take you to some places that you do not expect. Like, for example, there's a name that I have been following, uh, Dr. Arvard, Arvard, Arvard. He is in a lot of anti-Masonic books. He is also in a lot of early Mormon history books. And he's in this book as the director of the Danites. Okay, Dr. Arvard is the director of the Danites. So if you read some of the anti-Masonic material, Dr. Arvard is heavily involved with the creation of speculative masonry. Okay, which we have discovered through reading these books that becomes the Mormon church, like hands down. That you can't deny that once you read this stuff. Like once you read it, you can't deny it. And I know a lot of you are reading these books. It's just a fascinating thing. Once you make these connections and connect these dots, you can't deny this stuff because it's not my opinion. Nothing I say on my channel is my opinion. It's all what the book says. Every single episode is a different book. I talk about multiple books in the episodes, and you can read them for yourself. Like you can literally read this stuff for yourself, right? That I talk about. So, anyways, back to this. It's the first ever in print Corrill's work that talks about the Danites and the destroying angel in 1839, right? Okay. It's just great. The context, right? So you got to remember, this is the context of the Mormon War here, okay? And so I want to say, so Corrill writes, okay, and this is how he explains, or this is in chapter 22 of his book, and this is him talking about the destroying angel, okay. Okay, listen, because this is important. This is in 1839, apostates. A company of 10 men that were called the Destructionists, whose commander was called the Destroying Angel, had been appointed. Their business was to watch the movement of the citizens, and if they gathered in Bantam and left the place for far west, the Destructionists were to slip in behind them and burn the place. From some, they say, would borrow and promise to pay again. Others, they would stimulate to liberality by promising them blessings and prosperity in the name of the Lord, in their business and future prospects. Thus, many from time to time have lost their prosperity and become dissatisfied, until a great many have lost confidence in their leaders. The great apostate congregation is what he's talking about. And the Danites were created, okay, to govern dissenters. If you left, they would burn your place down. I mean, and the destroying angel was the leader of this. This takes place in 1839. And if you, or I'm sorry, 1838, right? Well, this most likely in context is happening before 1838, because this stuff just doesn't like pop up. You know what I'm saying? And so if you put in Hickman, if you add Hickman into the equation, he would have been 24 years old. He was a convert at 24. He is called the destroying angel. I mean, that's not a name that you just are given, right? That's a name you earn, right? Like you earn that name, right? That's the destroying angel. And if you listen to Hickman's own words, the guy was a tyrant at a child. From a child, the guy was the destroying angel, right? So it's fascinating, apostates, when you connect these dots and Joseph's destroying angel, right? I mean, it's still Brigham's still, it's still the same guy. It's the same guy, you know? So, um, yeah, they had enough, man. The Great Descent was they had enough. They didn't like it no more. It's not what they signed up for. They're robbing, they're stealing, they're killing, they're committing treason. Um, this book covers the entire Mormon war, right? Because this is the first account of it, and it's a first-hand account of it. John Corrill is involved in this, right? You understand? So Corrill is describing the internal church enforcement and conflicts, okay, uh, with outsides in Caldwell County, right? With outsiders in Caldwell County, right? The conflicts with outsiders in Caldwell County. Okay, that's what he's talking about. Tensions are high between the Mormons and the non-Mormons, and he explains the reasons why he left the church. Okay, he simply just had enough. That's not what he signed up for. And then the church just smears this guy. If you look him up in church archives and stuff like that, they just completely roast this guy, right? So prior to the destructionists, Corrill explains the overzealousness in enforcing loyalty, right? Okay, apostates, I want you to think Jim Jones and the cultic aspects of this, right? This is literally a cult, right? Like they're killing you if you decide to leave. If you try to leave, they're killing you. Okay? I mean, what else do you want to call a cult, right? Okay, so and that's what the destroying angel, like that's what his job was, right? So the church leaders, they needed to get control, right? They needed to control the dissenters. They needed to protect their community, the order of Enoch, right? The community, the communistic order, right? That's what's happening here, apostate congregation, at this time. Okay, this is part of the reason why the Missourians are not liking the Mormons, is because they're implementing this communistic order, right? And they're voting in blocks, right? You got to put this stuff together, congregation, okay? So like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. The only way to support the channel, The Mormon Atheist, is to watch the videos all the way through, like, share, subscribe, talk about the books, read the books, tell your friends, comment, click the button, notification bell, click on the videos through the notification bell, because we're not monetized and we will never be monetized. And so that's the only way you can support the channel. That's all I ask. I'm not asking you for money. I don't, I'm not going to sit here and beg you for money, and donations. I don't got no merch to sell you. I don't care. I would like you to just simply read the book and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way. This book is only 50 pages long, apostates. So you can read it in your spare time, read it on the toilet while you're working, yeah, just whatever. Read it on your lunch break. Okay, so the tensions are high between the Mormons and the non-Mormons. Okay, prior to the destructionists, okay, the loyalty, the cult, the church leaders need to get control of the dissent. This is all in he talks about the Mormon War. He talks about the execution orders, bogs, the whole 9 yards, Crooked Creek, um, everything, the Salt Sermon. It's all in this book, Apostate Congregation. The Danites, and this is all first mention stuff. First mention, first hand account stuff. Okay, and it's punchy. It's right to the point. Like I said, it's 27 chapters. The book is 50 pages, 27 chapters. Some of these chapters are 5 sentences long. Okay, and they're direct, to the point. It's a great book. It's a great, great book. So who is the destroying angel, apostates? Is it Bill Hickman in his own words? Because if you consider a timeline here, Bill Hickman totally fits the 1839 timeline of John Corrill talking about the destroying angel. So Bill Hickman has, and I want to be clear to you. I want to be very clear to you. John Corrill is not talking about a title. Understand me. He is not talking about a title. He is very much talking about a single person. Okay? The destroying angel. Okay? He doesn't say the destroying angels, plural, says angel. Okay? And he says the destroying angel was the leader. Okay? Pay attention to the wording. The wording is what catches people. Because in LDS history, they changed the wording. This book is altered. And these words are removed and replaced with other faithful words or other destroying words, depending on the context of what the church is trying to say. You understand? Okay. So yeah, Hickman, right? He totally fits the timeline. Okay, so this raised a question to me, right? Porter Rockwell. Porter Rockwell in Mormon history is referred to as the destroying angel. So it made me wonder, right? Like, Porter Rockwell he's mentioned in a lot of these books, but not he is never referred to as the destroying angel. Never. And so considering the end of the story in Beetle's book, right? The 72 edition, as to the reasons why Bill Hickman was left to live, because let's face it, Bill Hickman was allowed to live. He did not just ride off into the sunset. Okay. That guy died of old age because he was allowed to die of old age. Okay. Let's be very clear about that. But Hickman was whitewashed. and Porter Rockwell becomes the new man, right? Which this got me thinking about a commenter, one of the commenters. Okay, so I got this subject is brought on by now two commenters. You guys are getting my mind going, right? Because my personal time frame is in the late 1700s to when Joseph Smith dies. That's the time frame I stay in, right? And that's what I read. Those are the books I read, right? I don't really veer too much into the Brigham era. I do dabble a little bit, but not much. So admittingly, I don't really know a lot of Brighamite history, okay? But I do know Joseph Smith history, and the Mormon War is part of that history, right? So when this commenter introduced me to the book by John Beadle, uh, Brigham Young's Destroying Angel, the 1872 edition, okay? One of the commenters on that video asked me, who do you think was worse, Rockwell or Hickman? And my answer, by far, Hickman. By far, Hickman. Okay, so it made me think about like who was worse, Rockwell or Hickman, right? But the way my mind works is, why is Rockwell now this? Why is he so prevalent, and why do you even ask such a question? Nothing bad with the commenter. He's just making me think. That's all. He's making me think out loud is what I'm doing, right? So why would somebody, not even him, just take the commenter totally out of the equation, just why would somebody ask that question? Who was worse, Rockwell or Hickman? So I started looking into Rockwell, and Rockwell assumes a lot of the Hickman story, right? So I start thinking, wow, well, maybe Hickman is whitewashed. And this is what leads me to believe that Hickman was allowed to live. Considering Hickman's own words in the 72 edition of Beadle's book, the Rockwell story on how Porter Rockwell really kind of assumes the Hickman narrative, right? A lot of the titles, Rockwell is now referred to as the Destroying Angel. Rockwell now becomes Brigham's bodyguard. Rockwell now becomes this. Rockwell now becomes that. So who was older, Rockwell or Hickman? So Rockwell was born in 1813. Hickman was born in 1815. So I think, this is my opinion, apostates. 100%. This is my opinion. I think there's a jealousy going on here. And Rockwell just took advantage of the situation and just, he kind of took the ball and ran with it, right? But if you read Beadle's book and the reasons why Wild Bill Hickman is allowed to live, he actually says, Brigham is afraid of me just as much as I am of him. There's a mutual respect, right? Because if you think of Corrill's book, Hickman has been with the institution since 38, right? So this dude knows some stuff. He knows some ins and outs. And if you read Beadle's book, he alludes to a lot of stuff. That book is a fascinating book. If you want to know about the Yates murder, it's all there. It's all there. Brigham Young, is just as guilty. But so this destroying angel has really sparked an interest in me because it crosses the boundaries of the timeline, right? Of my personal timeline. And it just makes you wonder. It makes you think, right, about LDS history and putting this Mormon stuff, right? Putting these ideas into context, right? Oh, I'm sorry, my camera fell. Putting these ideas into a historical context, and the only way that you can really do that, apostates, is by reading these books, the original versions, the original copies, because they get changed, they get altered, right? And so it's so interesting. God, it's so interesting. You got to remember, Beatles' book comes out in 72. Hickman was a victim of circumstances, right? Brigham Young put him in a situation. Well, I don't know. Considering the 39, considering Corrill's book, I don't know really how much of a situation, maybe Brigham did eventually, well, obviously, it's very obvious he did put him in a situation. But considering, if you want to say that Hickman is also the destroying angel that Corrill is talking about, I mean, right out of the get-go, off of, but Hickman talks about it. So it's a great mystery, but it's a solvable one because Hickman literally describes it in his own words, right? And then the leap here, if you want to call it that, is connecting Hickman as both destroying angels to Joseph Smith and to Brigham Young. To Joseph Smith is the important part here. So Brigham Young double-crossed Hickman, and the result was the compromise, okay, if you will. Hickman gets to live. Hickman is allowed to live. The destroying angel put in the work, okay? He died in either disgrace or glory, depending on how you want to look at it, depending on what side you come from. When I mean disgrace as in LDS disgrace, he was whitewashed in LDS history. He is now a dissenter because Hickman dissented. So he got excommunicated. That's the story. He got excommunicated. Why did he get, if he was so important, why did he get excommunicated? In Beatles' book, he tells you, okay? It's so fun connecting these dots. I love this. I love connecting these dots through this literature. You can literally connect Mormon history through the literature if you read the original source copies. It's fascinating. It's great. Apostate congregation, do you understand, all of you that are reading these books, okay, because you guys write me and you tell me and we converse about it, do you understand how leaps and bounds ahead of LDS historians and scholars you are by reading these original source copies? Okay, it's fascinating because all of scholarship is on the reprints, the faithful reprints. And how do I know that? Why can I say such a thing, apostates? Because you can literally look it up and Google it yourself. You can look this stuff up and you can compare your own notes. Okay? So Brigham double-crossed Hickman, right? So Hickman gets to live. Okay? So how do you, apostates? Let me ask you the question. Does Hickman die in disgrace? from an outside LDS point of view, or does he die in glory as this, what do you want to call him? A enforcer of loyalty to the Mormon church, right? Now that I say that, that sounds incredibly terrible. Now that I think about that. But it's true though. I mean, how do you want to look at this guy? What should history say? Because it's really kind of up in the air. One guy says one thing, another guy says another thing. The sentiment is the same. This guy did what he did because he had to do it, and this is what happened to him. But there's no opinion. There's no opinion. The opinion comes from LDS sources. John Beadle gives a great opinion in chapter 1 of his book, right? In 1872. And the preface, the preface in chapter 1. He talks about the character of Hickman and the legitimacy of his character. He doesn't agree with what he did and all of the crimes he committed, but John Beadle says he was a very like a legit guy, like he was an honorable guy, right? You know, you got to think 1800s here, right? Not 2025. Okay, so does he die in glory or does he die in disgrace? I mean, the dude is fucking brutal. The guy is brutal. But so how should history, from an outside LDS point of view, look at this guy, right? I really want to note the timeline. Hickman is excommunicated in 1868. Okay. In Beadle's book, in 1868, that's when Beadle he meets Hickman, and Hickman gives Beadle the Confessions. Is in 1868. Church history says Hickman is excommunicated in 1868. Okay, so now, apostates, I want to really get into some weeds right now with Bill Hickman. Okay, so Bill Hickman in 1872, this is the only account, okay, of the destroying angel other than John Corrill, right? In Bill Hickman's own writings, okay, which are only in John Beadle's 1872 book, Brigham's Destroying Angel. There's no mention of children of any kind. He does have wives, but he says what happens to those wives. Okay, that's in Beadle's book. Okay, he would have been 58 years old in the time of Beadle's book, right? In Corrill's book, he's 24 years old. There's no mention of children. Okay, he's excommunicated in 1868. There's no mention of children. He would have been 58 years old, congregation, in 1872. Do you understand me? He was excommunicated. So, and he says what happened to his wives. He has no children. Later, he has 10 wives and whatever children and however many grandchildren. This is LDS history. Do you see how LDS history is skewed? So who are the people that are the descendants of Bill Hickman? because there's legitimate no historical record of any kind other than cultic LDS history that records Bill Hickman ever having any children. His own words, he never mentions children. He never mentions grandchildren. Grandchildren, here's the key word. He would have been 58 years old in 1872. He does not mention children of any kind. So if you consider after 1872 the possibility that he could have had children, it's impossible. You understand me? Because he is heavily scrutinized. This guy is watched. He is watched. He is allowed to live. Do you understand me? Okay. So who are the descendants of Bill Hickman? Because historically speaking, there is zero evidence of him ever having children of any kind other than secondhand source. Later years are written. Nothing contemporary of the day, nothing. So who are the descendants of Bill Hickman? Especially the grandkid. That's who I want to know. Who is the grandkid? Who is the grandkid? That's your smoking gun right there, is the grandkid. You don't think anybody would have wrote about these people like this stuff? Remember, congregation, what is written and what is not written. What is not written is just as important as what is written. Because what is not written is the gap. That's the opportunity. And that's where these opportunistic LDS Mormon historians come in and fill in the gaps. Elijah Snow, Parley Pratt, right? These people, they fill in the gaps. And then later on, historians, right? B.H. Roberts, so on and so forth. Okay. So he was a dissenter. Nothing else was ever published by him, ever, in his lifetime. In his lifetime, nothing was published by him, specifically by him. Okay, nothing. In his lifetime. Okay, read what he actually does to his plural wives. He has plural wives. And in his confessions, read what he does to them. Don't you think he would talk about children if he had children? Do you think he would do what he does to those women if he had kids? Apostate congregation, do you understand the level of informational power that you have over these historians by reading these books? It's fascinating. It's phenomenal. It's so many things. There's so many emotions that come out of this stuff. The very first Salt sermon, the first in print Salt sermon. Okay. There's so many firsts with John Corrill's book, right? Let me give you the full name of his book again. Let me go back. It's a long title, so okay. It's the name of his book is A Brief History of the Church of Christ, the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly called Mormons, including an account of their doctrine and discipline. That made me laugh. With the reason of the author for leaving the church. Okay, that's his reason. Okay, it's published in 1839. Okay, the entire book is about the Mormon War. Okay, and it's the very first written, published account of the Mormon War and all of the stuff that goes along with it. He talks about how the people were pushed out, and so we all hear these stories about how the Mormon women were put out in the cold and they had to survive for days and it was snowing and blah, blah, blah. They had no food and children died and all this stuff. Well, if you read the book, this is the firsthand account. It's firsthand account. Eyewitness, he's there. He's going through this. He is a member. He is actually going through this. Do you understand me, apostates? And he tells you the original versions of all of these stories. And they are not at all what they have become. There's no people in the snow starving. He writes about how they were given so many warnings to leave. So many warnings. Which is what escalated the robberies and the killings and it escalated all this stuff, which brings on the Mormon War, right? He talks about the escalation to the Mormon War. John Corrill does in his book. It's great. It's a fascinating book, apostates. It's a fascinating book. So it's just crazy to me that these stories are so skewed. They become, they're legitimate firsthand account stories, the contemporary authors of the day. And they're firsthand accounts, apostates. Joseph Smith is alive. He's there. Sidney Rigdon, the cast of characters, the Mormon cast of characters are all present. I don't think people are like appreciating that when you read these books, right? And that is the fascinating thing, is these guys are talking about these people while they're alive in their day, right? And they all call Joseph Smith an imposter, meaning he's not the guy, right? That's not Joseph Smith. That's not the guy, right? Which goes back to my other videos. Is Joseph Smith a real person, right? I'm going to do another video on this book, okay? And we're going to talk about the Joseph Smith translation, the book of Matthew, okay? And we're going to talk about how you will not see me until the end of time, right? It's the secrecy, right? The secret aspect, the secretive. John Corrill talks about the secret organization, right? That's within the church. Dr. Arver, here we go again with Dr. Arver, right? Think of go back to the videos I do on Masonry, right? And Solomon Southwick and William Morgan and Mormon politics, and watch these videos and connect these dots, congregation, right? It's great stuff. You people are leaps and bounds ahead of the historians. I can't even express that. Pretty soon, you're going to start watching these ex-Mormon podcasts, and you're going to start seeing through them. I'm telling you, you will start seeing through these things. You will see them, because what do I say on my channel all the time, congregation? If I read a book, okay, and you try to tell me what's in that book, or if you read a book and somebody else, if you walk up to somebody and say, hey man, I read this book and it's a great book, here's what it says, and you tell them, and then the person that you're talking to says, oh wow, I read that same book years ago, and then that person starts telling you about the book, and you're looking at them thinking, what in the F are you talking about? That's not at all what that book is about. The gaslight, you can see the gaslight, right? You're being gaslit, right? That person's never read the book, and you can clearly see it. You know right off the bat, the dude starts telling you about chapter 10, and you're thinking, what the F? That's not anywhere in chapter 10. What are you talking about? And this guy will fight you. I swear I read the book. I know. I know. Okay? And you can see it. You can see right through them. That's what's happening. That's what's going to happen to you if you continue reading these books, right? Because it happened to me a long time ago. I have a very hard time, especially historians, when they're talking about history. I just have to bite my tongue and I just watch and I don't ever comment. I don't nothing. I listen, but you can see right through them. You're like, dude, that's not at all what that book says, you know? So this book you can get on archive.org, just like all the rest of them, everything else I talk about on the channel. Archive.org, make sure you get the 1839 edition, apostates. Okay? Dates matter, words matter. Follow these names. These names will take you places. Okay? The names that are in the books, right? They talk about names under different contexts. And then a lot of the names become later authors. They become dissenters later. And they write books on their dissent, right? So you follow the names. The names will take you places. Early Masonic names. When you're reading these early Masonry books, follow those names. Those names all have something to do with the creation foundation of LDS history, right? In the trials of William Morgan, right? The trials of William Morgan. It's good stuff, fascinating, fun stuff, apostate congregation. Okay, that's all I got for you tonight. Like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for taking the time to join me. I know your time is valuable. So thank you, like and subscribe to the channel. We are not monetized. We will never be monetized because now you're controlled. As soon as you're monetized, these people can control you. And they already tried, so I'm not doing it again. I got bit and I'm not doing it again. Okay. So we're Ronin, baby. We're Ronin. We're talking about the truth. We're looking for the truth. Okay, so here we are. Okay, we will never be monetized. So like and subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Watch the video through the notification. That helps the algorithms, right? Because I need all the algorithm help I can get because we're not monetized, and we will never be monetized. I'm not selling you out, apostate congregation. Okay, this is truth. We are truth seekers. There's no opinion on this channel. I did give my opinion, but I very clearly stated this is my opinion when the time came. Other than that, this is all about the books and the authors of the books. Okay, they preserved time for us, for right now. Okay, so here it is. Read it. Okay. Okay, congregation. In the words of the late great Solomon Southwick, in the words of the late great Solomon Southwick, the ashes of Morgan will rise. Here we are, congregation. We are William Morgan. We are the bridge. We are bridging that gap. Okay, that's what William Morgan was. He was the bridge. He bridged the gap. Okay, from anti-Masonry to anti-Mormonism. Why is William Morgan in literally every early Mormon book? There's some phrase, some reference, something that has to do with William Morgan in literally every book, even in this one. Do you understand me, apostates? William Morgan is the bridge. We are Morgan. I love it. I love it. Thank you, congregation. I will see you on the next go around. Comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what books you're reading. I know a lot of you are reading the books. Where are you at in the book? Comment. Some of you, what books, some of you, I've never heard of books that some of you are reading. So, maybe you can introduce me to a book, right? Because it's already happened. Okay, I will see you on the other side. Thank you, congregation, for watching and taking your time. Have a nice day and see you on the other side.